She left him hanging on live TV. He didn't flinch until $2.4 billion disappeared the next day. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's get into it. The ballroom at the Langwood Hotel buzzed with light and money. Cameras clicked. Glasses clinked. Suits shifted in every corner of the gold-trimmed room. It was the kind of event that smelled like power. Big deal. Big press. Bigger egos. And at the center of it all stood two people who had built their lives in opposite ways, now forced to share a stage. James Cross, CEO of Vector 9, wore a clean black suit with no tie. Simple. Sharp. Understated. Like him. He stood still, steady, waiting. A microphone clipped to his lapel. A speech prepared but short. His name was on every screen. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. Avery Lang stood 3 feet away, smiling just enough for the cameras. She wore navy blue, tailored head to toe. Her makeup was light but perfect. Her posture belonged to someone who had never been told no. She had just closed the biggest deal of her career. The merger between her firm, Lang Financial, and James's rising tech empire was now final. 2 companies, 2 legacies, 1 stage. The host cleared his throat. Let's give a warm welcome to the 2 minds leading this next chapter. A round of applause rose. James stepped forward. He offered his hand to Avery. Open. Simple. In front of 300 people and 3 livestream cameras. Avery looked at him, just for a second too long. She smiled, then folded her hands in front of her body and gave a single nod. No handshake, just silence. The applause quieted, but only a little. A few people blinked. Some shifted. The host filled the space. Well, onward we go. James didn't move. He didn't change his expression. He just dropped his hand and took a slow step back, then turned to the mic and delivered his speech. It was short, strong, professional. When it ended, people clapped again. But the mood had shifted. You could feel it, like the air had dropped 10 degrees. Avery walked off stage first. She looked straight ahead, not back. Her father stood near the bar and gave her a nod of approval. Legacy protected. James left through a side door. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't look rattled, but his assistant caught the faintest shift in his jaw. And that was enough. By midnight, the handshake moment had been clipped, posted, and shared. On TikTok, on X, on Instagram. Did she just curve the CEO of a billion-dollar company on live TV? This is what polite disrespect looks like. He handled that better than I ever could. The clip hit 1 million views by sunrise. At 7:03 a.m., James Cross's private office line rang. He was already awake, sitting in a gray chair by the window, Chicago skyline behind him. His assistant's voice was tight. We're getting calls. A lot of them. Investors, reporters, even schools pulling out of your education grants. He didn't ask why. He already knew. James stood, buttoned his jacket, and spoke clearly. Schedule a board call. In 1 hour. Tell legal to prep option B. Option B. Yes. He looked out the window. Fog still low over the river. Let's see what $2.4 billion looks like when it leaves quietly. Across town, Avery stood in her kitchen in silk pajamas, sipping black coffee. Her phone buzzed, but she didn't check it. She was scrolling through headlines about the merger. She felt good, in control. Her publicist had already drafted a press quote. She didn't see the video clip until almost 9 a.m. Even then, she didn't flinch. People overreact. It'll pass. But by noon, it didn't. The clip was everywhere. And this time, the comments weren't quiet. At 2:12 p.m., Avery's phone rang again. It was her father. Call James, he said. Fix it. Before he buries us. Have you ever watched someone's mistake change everything in a single moment? Tell us in the comments. Someone else might be feeling that same silence right now. Backhand index pointing down. By 5 p.m., James had spoken to 5 lawyers, 3 partners, and 1 advisor who used to work at the White House. Each call ended the same way. "We support you." Quietly. He didn't expect anything louder. He never had. He sat at the head of a long glass table, tapping his pen against a leather folder. Across from him sat Clara, his chief legal officer. She closed her laptop gently. "If you walk, the board has your back." James looked down at the paper in front of him. It wasn't just numbers. It was power. Real, silent, unstoppable power. "I'm not walking," he said. "I'm removing the safety net." The merger deal had included a fallback, a shared reserve fund, $2.4 billion in emergency cash, to protect both companies during transition. That fund could only be touched if both CEOs agreed. And now, James no longer agreed. He reached for a pen, initialed once, then again, and the fund vanished from shared control. Clara spoke carefully. "You know what this will do." "Yes." "And you're not going public with the reason?" "No." "Why not?" James stood, smoothing his jacket. "Because silence speaks louder than revenge." Across town, in the Lang financial offices, Avery walked into the glass conference room with a fresh blowout and a tight schedule. The air was tense. Executives sat around the table with their laptops open, but no one was typing. Her father sat at the far end. He didn't smile. "What's going on?" she asked, dropping into a chair. Her father slid a printed report across the table. Red lines, big numbers. Cross froze the fund. Avery blinked. "He can't do that." "He can." "He did. And now we're exposed." Fully. She leaned back. "This is a stunt." Her father didn't respond. Someone else did. "He's making a point," said Marcia, the firm's head of PR. Avery glanced at her. "About what?" Marcia didn't answer. That night, news outlets started circling. Not official stories, just whispers. Industry sites posted headlines like, "Deal shaken after Cross moves funds. Power shift in post-merger strategy?" Was the handshake moment just the start? Still, James said nothing. No post. No interview. No tweet. He sat in his apartment that evening, lights low, music quiet. His assistant texted, "They're scrambling. Some are calling it revenge. Want to comment?" He replied, "No. Let the silence hold." Avery sat on her couch with her phone in her hand, staring at the screen. Comments filled every post she'd made in the last 6 months. Some sharp, some brutal. Most of them asked the same question. Why didn't you shake his hand? At 11:02 p.m., she picked up her phone and finally called him. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. Across the city, James watched his phone light up, then go dark again. He didn't move. James walked into the building like he had every morning for the past 6 years. No cameras, no crowd, just calm. The security guard at the front desk gave a small nod. "Morning, Mr. Cross." James returned it with a polite smile. "Morning." Upstairs, his staff waited. Clara stood at the edge of the boardroom, a file in her hands. "It's ready," she said. James nodded once. "Send it." Across the city, emails began to land. 12 partners, 7 corporate clients, 2 banks. Each message the same. Effective immediately, Vector 9 will be restructuring its partnership terms. As of today, all bridge assets will return to sole oversight. It was clean, legal, unstoppable. By noon, the phone at Lang Financial wouldn't stop ringing. Avery watched her assistant scramble to answer. Investors wanted reassurance. Their top client was now backing away. And James? Still hadn't spoken to anyone. She walked into the same boardroom where she'd once made confident speeches. Now it felt cold. "Why is he doing this?" she asked aloud. No one answered. Then her father spoke, voice low. "Because you made it easy." She turned to him. "This can't just be about the handshake." Her father didn't blink. "Maybe it's not. Maybe it's about what the handshake meant." Later that day, Avery sat alone in her office. The view used to make her feel powerful. Now it felt far away. She opened her laptop and searched James Cross childhood. It wasn't something she'd ever bothered to look at before. She found an old article buried in a local paper. Southside Native Lands $8 million in seed funding. Another piece. From public housing to private equity. The rise of James Cross. And another. He says little, but the moves speak for themselves. Avery leaned back. She thought about the quiet way he walked off that stage. No fuss, no demand, just control. And now, he was still doing it. Quiet, clear, powerful. That night, James sat in his apartment. He poured a glass of water, turned off his phone, and opened a folder. Inside were reports from his outreach team. 3 new schools funded. 5 scholarship letters sent. 2 food programs approved. All funded from the money he'd pulled back. Not $1 went into revenge. It all went into building something better. Away from the noise. Away from her. The meeting wasn't on the calendar. Avery's assistant walked in quietly. "He's here." Avery looked up from her desk. "James?" The assistant nodded. "He asked for 10 minutes. Avery stood without speaking. The boardroom was empty. Sunlight hit the glass table, making the space feel colder. James was already inside, standing by the window. He didn't turn when she walked in. She closed the door behind her. "Thank you for coming," she said. He didn't respond right away. Then, "This room looks different now." She looked around. "It's the same." "No," he said softly. "It's not." She moved to the table, sat across from him. He stayed standing. "I assume you've seen the numbers," she said. He nodded once. "And the posts," she added. Still no answer. Avery folded her hands. "I made a mistake." James looked at her. "What do you think your mistake was?" She hesitated. "The press moment. The way I handled the handshake." "No." That caught her off guard. "Then what?" He turned to face her. "The mistake wasn't that you didn't shake my hand. It's that you didn't see me as someone who deserved it." The words sat heavy between them. No yelling. No drama. Just truth. Avery looked down. "I didn't mean." "I know," he said. "You didn't mean to. But it still said something." She looked up again. "And now you're saying something back. With the money. With the press." He shook his head. "No. This isn't revenge." He sat down at the other end of the table. "I've spent years being measured. Watched. Tested. I've had to prove I belong in rooms you walked into without trying." Avery didn't speak. "I'm not here to shame you," James said. "I'm here to explain why I pulled away." She nodded slowly. "I understand." "No," he said. "You don't. Not yet." She looked at him. "Then help me understand." He leaned forward slightly. "You don't fix this with PR. Or quotes. Or a staged apology. I'm not trying to fix anything. That's the first honest thing you've said." Silence stretched. Not tense, just real. Then Avery spoke again. "I don't want this to be who I am." James studied her. "You still get to choose who you become." She stood slowly. "I'd like to earn that choice. In time." James gave the smallest nod. "Time will tell." As she left the room, she didn't rush. And for the first time, she didn't feel in control. She felt open. 3 days passed. No meetings. No headlines. No calls from James. Avery filled the silence with work. But none of it landed. Emails felt hollow. Numbers felt flat. She tried to act normal. She didn't feel normal. Late Wednesday morning, she opened her browser. Typed, "James Cross nonprofit work." She'd never looked. Not really. The first result showed a photo. James standing next to a group of high school students. No suits. No speech. Just him. Jeans. Hoodie. A hand resting lightly on a student's shoulder. Below that, a link. Reading Spaces Project, Southside Chapter. She clicked. Free tutoring. Book drives. Scholarships. Started 10 years ago. Still growing. That afternoon, she asked her driver to take her to the address listed on the website. "Are you sure?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." The building was small. Red brick. One side painted with a mural of kids holding open books. Avery stepped inside. No receptionist. No press. Just a folding table, 2 volunteers, and a boy laughing with his tutor. She looked around. One wall was filled with thank you notes. One was filled with photos. In the center of both, James. A woman walked over. "Can I help you?" Avery introduced herself quietly. The woman raised an eyebrow. "I've seen you online." Avery smiled. "That's not always a good thing." "No," the woman said. "But showing up here? That might be." They spoke for 10 minutes. Avery asked questions. She didn't pretend to know more than she did. She just listened. For once. That evening, she sat at a small cafe off West Roosevelt Avenue. No laptop, no planner, just a notebook. She opened to a blank page. Wrote one line. "Not everything has to be said, but it should be understood." Her phone buzzed. Not a call. A message. From James. "Heard you visited the center today. Thank you for not making it a show." She replied. "Wasn't there for the cameras. I wanted to see what mattered to you." There was a pause. Then, "That's a start. Have you ever had to face yourself? Not in a mirror, but in a memory? Drop your story below. Someone out there might need your honesty tonight." Backhand index pointing down. Avery waited in the lobby for 13 minutes. Not long. Not short. Just long enough to remember she was walking into his space now. Not the other way around. The receptionist finally waved her in. "Mr. Cross will see you now." She stepped into the office. It was clean. Quiet. The view stretched across the river. James stood behind his desk, but not in a way that felt distant. More like calm. He nodded once. "Hi. Hi," she said, voice steady. She didn't sit. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote something," she said, "because I didn't trust myself to say it right." He watched her. "I'm not here to fix the past. I just want to own it." He nodded. "Okay." She handed him the note. He didn't open it right away. She didn't rush him. He finally unfolded it, read quietly. No reaction. Just silence. Avery spoke again. "When I didn't shake your hand, it wasn't hate. It wasn't even about you. It was about control. My image. My comfort." She paused. "And I'm sorry. For the disrespect. For what I didn't see. And for what I didn't even try to understand." James looked up. Not cold. Not warm. Just present. "I believe you," he said. "But belief isn't the same as trust." "I know. And trust takes time." "I'm willing to earn it," she said. They sat down across from each other. The tension wasn't gone. But it had changed. Felt real now. Honest. After a few minutes, James leaned back in his chair. "When I saw the clip online," he said, "I wasn't surprised. Not really." She looked down. "But I was tired," he continued. "Tired of showing up in rooms where people smile but never see me." Avery nodded. "I see that now." He tilted his head slightly. "Do you?" She didn't rush her answer. "I'm starting to." The conversation shifted. Slowly, they talked about the nonprofit, the schools, his mother, her brother, not to fill space but to share space. When she stood to leave, he walked her to the elevator. "Thank you for showing up," he said. She smiled. "Took me long enough." The elevator opened. She stepped in. But before the doors closed, she looked back. "I'd still like a second chance," she said. "Absolutely, here's." Avery stared at the message. Pitch night. 6 p.m. Community Youth Hall, 45th and Ellis. No suits. No cameras. Come as you are. Jay. No attachments. No details. Just trust. She read it twice, then started to get ready. The building wasn't fancy. Paint chipped on the outside. One light flickered in the hallway. The carpet was worn thin from years of use. But inside the room, warmth. Rows of folding chairs. Teens with notebooks in hand. Volunteers passing out snacks. At the front stood James. Not with a mic, but with presence. He waved her over quietly. "Didn't think you'd come," he said. "I almost didn't," she answered. But I'm glad I did. He introduced her to no one. He didn't explain her name, her title, or her past. He just let her be. She sat in the third row. No clipboard, no notepad, just listening. The kids stood one by one and pitched ideas. A mobile app to help with homework. A food truck serving low-income neighborhoods. A mentorship program for girls who lost parents. They spoke with nervous voices and wide eyes. And James, patient, thoughtful, nodded after each one. No big words. No cutting feedback. Just support. One teen stumbled through her idea. Stopped halfway. Flustered. Avery leaned forward and said, "You're doing great. Just breathe. We're with you." The girl smiled. And finished. After the pitches ended, James walked Avery outside. The night air was cool. The street was quiet. "Thank you for coming," he said. "You didn't need me here," she replied. "No, but I wanted you here." She looked at him. "Why?" He didn't rush the answer. "Because showing up is more powerful than speaking." They walked slowly down the sidewalk. James paused near a lamppost. "When I was 17, he said, I stood in that same room. I pitched a tutoring program. No one believed in it. But you kept going. I had one person who looked at me like I mattered." Avery looked at him. "And now you're doing the same." They reached her car. She turned to face him. "Thank you for inviting me." He nodded. "You didn't try to take the spotlight tonight," he said. "That mattered." "I've had enough spotlights," she whispered. This felt better. She opened her door, then hesitated. "I don't want to mess this up," she said. James leaned on the frame. "Then don't." She smiled. Simple, soft, real. It started with an email. Short, clear. Subject: lunch. Body: no press, no pressure. Just a conversation. "James." Avery read it twice before replying. "Yes, thank you." They met at a small cafe inside the Chicago Art Institute. No suits, no cameras, no business agenda. Just quiet voices and natural light through tall windows. James arrived first, holding 2 coffees. Avery joined him at a corner table. "You picked a museum," she said. "I like the quiet," he replied. She smiled. "Same." They talked about everything but work. Books, music, what they liked about the city and what they didn't. For the first time, nothing felt heavy. After lunch, they walked through the gardens outside. The leaves were turning. Yellow, gold, red. A small breeze moved through the trees. James paused beside a sculpture. "I used to come here when I was broke," he said. "Before the first check cleared. I'd sit on that bench and watch people walk by in $1,000 coats." Avery looked over at the bench. "Funny," she said. "I used to come here and wish I could be alone. Everyone always wanted something from me." They both laughed, gently, not forced, then fell into silence. It wasn't awkward. It was easy, like they had stepped into a middle space neither of them expected. James spoke again. "Why did you say yes to lunch?" Avery thought for a second. "Because when I left your office, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt seen, and I wanted to feel that again." He looked at her, then nodded. "Fair enough." They reached the corner near the river. The city moved around them. Cars, horns, hurried footsteps. But for a few seconds they stood still. James checked his watch. "I have a meeting in 15 minutes. Then I won't keep you." He paused. "But I'd like to do this again. No expectations. Just real time." Avery met his eyes. "Me too." As they parted, she didn't look back. But this time she didn't need to. The air had changed. The room felt familiar. Same hotel. Same gold trim. Same echo. Another press event, but this time very different energy. A new project was being announced. A joint fund focused on education and community equity. Vector 9 and Lang Financial side by side. Avery stood on one side of the stage. James stood on the other. No scripts. Just one table. 2 chairs. One agreement. The host finished the opening remarks, then looked to James. He stood, nodded at the crowd, then turned to Avery. His hand reached out. This time she didn't pause. She didn't smile for the cameras. She just took his hand. Firm, steady. And the room applauded. Not just for the deal, but for the change. The moment was shared online again. A photo, two hands finally joined. Captions read, "What growth looks like." This handshake meant more. Real leadership starts here. But the real moment came later. Away from the lights. On the rooftop of the building, just past sunset, they stood side by side. City lights blinked below. No one else around. Avery wrapped her coat tighter. James looked out over the skyline. "You didn't have to include me," she said. "I didn't do it for you," he replied. She nodded. "I know." Then, "Thank you anyway." He turned to her. "You've changed." "So have you." "Not really," he said. "I just stopped apologizing for who I've always been." She smiled. "And I finally started." They stood in silence for a while. Then Avery reached into her bag, pulled out a small book. Black cover. No title. "I've been writing," she said. "Not for anyone. Just for myself." He took it, flipped through a few pages. One line stopped him. "I thought I had to protect the life I built, but I was keeping out the one I actually wanted." He looked up. "That's honest." She shrugged. "It's the only thing I've got left." James handed the notebook back. "You know," he said, "that first night you didn't shake my hand." She winced. "Yeah." "Was the moment I decided to stop needing permission from people who never planned to see me." Avery nodded slowly. "And the moment I realized I didn't even know what I was protecting." He stepped back, just a little, then added, "Now we get to build something neither of us saw coming. Together." He didn't say yes. He didn't need to. He just stayed. Have you ever learned something about yourself because of someone you once misjudged? Tell your story below. You never know who might be reading. Backhand index pointing down. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed the story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.